we wanted to explore, your expertise on active shooter training, and it's obviously relevant in the wake of the Uvalde school shooting, where police waited for a long period of time before interceding with that shooter as he was in that classroom, as everybody I think is well aware of at this point.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of go over some of the basics to start with of active shooter training, because I've taken active shooter courses twice, including a course from Faster Colorado that specifically deals with schools. I also did the Israeli Tactical School active shooter training for civilians. So you've done law enforcement training as the person teaching it. So can you give us just a little bit of background on how these trainings generally work? What are the priorities?
It's funny because we talked about this on my show as well. There really isn't that much to it, is there? It's not terribly complicated training. It's pretty common sense. We hopefully learned from the awful tragedy at Columbine at the high school in Colorado, what to do and what not to do. And in our training course, when I was instructed to be an instructor, I went through the course as a student, and it's very, very basic. You respond to an active shooter, whether in my case, whether you're on duty or off, and you go to the sound of the gunfire. You go to where the gunfire is going on, and you do everything you can to end that gunfire. Usually that means shooting and probably killing the person doing the shooting. I think the important part of the active shooter training is getting an officer or an agent into the most realistic sort of force on force environment you can get them into. I'm sure that you have the same thing in your training, where there's someone with a sim gun or something similar, someone who can shoot back at you. And there is a lot of chaos, and there is a lot of loud noises going on, and you have to sort through that. You have to balance your cognitive load long enough to get to where the shooter is, find that person, and put them down. A big part of that is ignoring anything on the way to where that is. You're going to see, if you respond to something like this, you're very likely going to see people injured, badly injured, maybe almost dying. And we're taught, and we teach our agents to bypass all of that stuff, bypass anything else, any distractions, any IEDs, anything else you might, run into on the way to where the person's killing people, and get to them and kill them. Now,
Yeah.
I think, go ahead.
And I just think it's important to emphasize that, right? The main takeaway in both the active shooter courses that I've experienced myself, and in every training I've ever read about or heard of, including the ones that they were doing in Uvalde just this March, is that the priority is to go to the gunfire, to immediately confront the shooter and get him to stop by whatever means necessary before he can kill more people. Right. I mean, am I being too simplistic in my summation there?
No, I don't think so. And I wonder how we're going to fill 45 minutes, to be quite honest with you, because that really is kind of all there is to it. I think, I responded to an active shooter before I'd ever had any active shooter training. I was on a task force in California in San Diego County, and I was out in an unmarked car. Basically, my job that night was to spot gangsters. We were doing gang operations, gang suppression, and in the unmarked car, and then call in marked units to go, if this person had a warrant or whatever the case may be, to go do their thing. And I was right down the street from a gym. It was a gym for underprivileged kids. People volunteered there to teach them boxing and get them in shape and that kind of thing and keep them off the street. Earlier that day, one of those volunteers had been let go. I still don't know why. Had been let go, asked to leave the premises. He went home, got a pistol, came back and started shooting the place up. He was such a coward, in fact, that he opened the barn door of this place and stuck his arm through that opening, not even looking, and just started spraying the place with bullets. I was so close that, as it turns out, when I got there and I'm running into this, people are running out, and it turns out the shooter ran right past me. Now, he had gotten rid of the pistol, so there was no way to know who was who. But the point is, the most important thing is to get in there. Let me talk about something else. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, right? Bravery is feeling that fear, unless you're a complete psychopath, feeling that fear and overcoming it and gutting up and getting in there and doing what you have to do. There's no shame in being afraid. There's no shame in feeling like, you know what, there's someone shooting there. I don't want to go in that place. I don't want to die. However, you signed up for law enforcement. You signed up to protect people. Usually the police are reactive. So this is one of the few times when we can be proactive and get in there while the thing is happening and do something about it. If you sign up to be a law enforcement officer, it's incumbent upon you to have a conversation with yourself long before the moment of truth ever happens. I say this to my citizen self-defenders. Same thing. If you're going to carry a firearm, you need to have really thought through whether or not you're willing to use a firearm to defend yourself. If it's going to be on you, you need to be ready to use it. Otherwise, it could be taken away from you and used against you. So in the case of law enforcement, you need to have decided in your head that I'm going to overcome that fear and I'm going to act. I'm going to get out of my car. I'm going to, even though your body's telling you to run away, I'm going to get a firearm, preferably a long gun, and I'm going to go in there and end this threat. You have to have also decided, I might die in the process of this. That's a real possibility. But if you haven't had that conversation with yourself ahead of time, you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing your agency, and most importantly, the community you serve, you're doing them a disservice by not being mentally prepared, by not having said all the things you want to say to your loved ones, by not having that spiritual and mental fitness ahead of time.